Welcome back. Earlier this summer, the California Reparations Task Force completed 2 years of work studying and developing reparations proposals for Black Californians with lineage to Black people enslaved in the U.S. That final report was sweeping, more than 1,000 pages, but the report merely contained recommendations. It still takes an act of the legislature to make any of what's in that document a reality. Well, today, Senator Steven Bradford of Southern California took the next step to making reparations happen here in California. He joins us live now via Zoom from his office in Sacramento. Senator Bradford, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. The amendment you introduced today to SB 490 is the first step in making reparations happen here in California. It's important to note, though, the bill won't be heard until the next legislative cycle. So why act now?
I think we need to send an early indication of what reparations needs to be, but more importantly, set up the infrastructure regardless of what we decide that final program or payment might look like. You need infrastructure to implement the programs, and this is what this bill does. It gives a foundation, it gives us structure, and it was one of the #1 recommendations of creating a Freedmen Affairs agency to implement those programs. So this is what it does. It pretty much is the framework to move forward.
Yeah, certainly getting the ball rolling there with proposing the creation of the Freedmen Affairs Agency. What do you hope that agency will accomplish? You mentioned creating the framework to making reparations happen.
I'm hoping it's going to be the tool, and I'm not hoping, it has to be the tool for implementation, regardless of what those reparations look like at the end. You need infrastructure, you need an agency, and this agency will oversee that. It will help also identify those men and women who are direct descendants of chattel slavery here in this country and help them qualify for the reparations, and putting structure to the various programs that we hope to implement, whether it's continued education, whether it's health care, whether it's child care, you name it. You're going to need an agency to oversee this. So we look for it to, like I say, to be the foundation for moving forward for California's reparations program.
And we have on the screen right here some of the things that the Freedmen Affairs Agency would oversee. As you mentioned, everything from establishing that genealogy to distributing business grants, facilitating employment training, processing direct compensation payments, if that is to happen. But as you noted, some components of the office would still need some additional legislative support. So do you plan on, I imagine at the start of the next legislative cycle, introducing some additional bills to build out some more of the framework of what you all outlined in that final report by the California Reparations Task Force?
It's going to require numerous bills, not just by myself, but my colleagues of the Black Caucus, and hopefully our non-African American allies as well, to truly stand up this agency and the programs that need to come from it. So this is just the very first step. Again, I see a half a dozen to a dozen more bills in the various categories that we're talking about, making it part of reparations. So again, an education component, a healthcare component, a home buying component, you name it, we're going to have those various bills that deal with those areas specifically. So again, this just provides us the foundation and framework to go forward.
As you noted at the top of the interview here, you said that you creating, or at least amending SB 490 right now is sending out an early indication of what you plan to do as you introduce, or perhaps your colleagues as well, introduce a number of bills to make reparations a reality here in California. And you also said that you hope that that support isn't just contained to the Black Caucus there in Sacramento. Have you received any early support from your colleagues in the Senate, perhaps in the House as well, to signify that they are willing to work with you? They are interested in making this happen.
There's been great interest expressed by our colleagues, but again, without seeing anything specific. I can't just, identify individuals on a specific issue, but overall reparations, there's been a open willingness to discuss what that might look like in the future. And I have to admit, there has been some pushback as well. I mean, it's some folks who still haven't wrapped their arms around it. That's why I'm encouraging my colleagues during this break over the next 3 months to read the report, not only the interim report, but the final report, because it speaks to why this is owed, why this is due, why this is so important. And I think it helps give folks a little bit more comfort if you know the true story of American history as well as California's history as it relates to slavery here in this country.
Yeah, you're certainly giving folks some food for thought as you all head into the legislative break soon. In that statement, though, earlier that you released today announcing the legislation, I want to read you a quote here that you gave in that statement. It says, "Over our history, this land and nation have benefited from 250 years of wage theft through slavery. Just as my colleagues support those bills relating to wage theft, they should also support reparations-related legislation. Reparations are not a gift. They are not a handout or charity, but they are what was promised, owed, and overdue." What more needs to be done to make the case to your legislative colleagues who you're saying that you're getting pushback from, and also the average Californian who perhaps might not buy into California should be behind reparations?
Read the story, know the history. Again, I say if you can inherit generational wealth, you can inherit generational debt. This is a debt that is owed by descendants of chattel slavery, not only in California, but across this nation. And it's important to know the story. And what we have done for so long in America is whitewashed our story. It is often said there are stories that made America, and then there's stories that America has made up. Much of what we teach in our school is stories that America has made up. This reparations task force report, the interim and the final report, tells the true story, all the challenges that African Americans went through in this country to build it to the great nation that it is today. So I'm encouraging my colleagues to know that story, because many of us don't know, or many of them don't know, and even people that look like me don't know the complete story of slavery in this country.
All right. California Senator Steven Bradford, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us here. I know in our previous conversations you've said you term out in 2 years, and you hope at the end of that 2 years that you will be able to make some substantial pushes toward reparations. So we will continue to follow this here on ABC 7 News. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the coverage.